Hi, I'm Tracy Madigan. Welcome to FrancoFiles. When many of us think of space, we think of landing on the moon, going to Mars, but it's more than a destination. Space holds the answers to urban planning, to preventing or better predicting natural disasters. There's so much data being sent to us from space. Our guest today lives and breathes that data. Nicolas Maubert is space counselor to the French Embassy and French Space Agency representative here in the US. In 2017, Maubert rowed a boat solo from Kenya to French Guyana. It took him over a month, so he knows a thing or two about relying on satellites. In today's episode, we talk about the dangers, diplomacy, and all the untapped resources of space. Let me start by saying that it's interesting for me as someone who isn't involved in your area of expertise that the golden age of space is actually today. That might be surprising to people.
Yeah, definitely. We are living a true golden age of space. We have very ambitious missions. We have fundings for this mission. We have technologies that are coming up. So we have beautiful programs like Artemis program from the US. That is a program with the ambition to go back to the moon by 25, 26, roughly. And to inspire really the new generation. This new golden age is not only limited to the US, it's really worldwide. Now we have more and more countries involved in space and doing space missions, either to explore the solar system. We have beautiful planets to explore, to know more about ourselves, where we come from, who we are, where we go, but also at the service of the Earth, because we have big challenges on the Earth, and space at the service of the Earth, for instance, to characterize the climate evolution, to help adapting to the consequence of the climate change are really essential. And we are using a lot of satellites data to, for instance, to monitor the deforestation, to help prevent floodings, to monitor the fishing, the erosion of the shores, and all these things. So,
it strikes me that there's space as looking up from Earth and then looking down at Earth.
Yes, definitely, yes. And if you think about characterizing the climate evolution, for instance, so you have the Weather Forecast Worldwide Organization who have defined like 50 variables to characterize this climate evolution. Half of them are coming from observables that are directly taken by satellites. So you cannot, you rely really on satellite data to monitor this evolution of climate, because with satellites, you can see the Earth from above on the global scales and in many what we call wavelengths. So it's not only optical, of course, you can see the ice melting at the poles, but you can monitor the dwarfness of the soil, the rate of chlorophylls in the trees and all these things. So you can really characterize the Earth on the global scales.
It's rich as a source of information. So let's stay on that. Let's divide it into, let's keep looking down towards the Earth. You work here at the French Embassy in Washington, D.C. Let's talk a little bit about the diplomacy of all the information that can be gathered and what's done with that.
Space is really a powerful tool for diplomacy. So I work here. I've been here for 4 years now. So I work as the representative of CNES, the French Space Agency. Our office has been here since 1965 because the French-US cooperation is a long-standing cooperation. So as a representative of CNES, but also as space counselor to the ambassador and to the embassy, because we use space as a powerful tool for diplomacy. In the middle of crisis, space is really something that put people together. If you look at the International Space Station, despite the big crisis we are facing today, cooperation is still going on over there. So yes, and as a matter of fact, for the past year, this space in the relationship between France and the US has been really used intensively. We have set up the first space comprehensive dialogue at governmental level between France and the US to discuss any matters related to civil, commercial, or defense space. And it's really a powerful tool for our diplomacy. Yeah.
When we talk about tensions on the international scale with different countries today, wars going on, how intricate is the strategy that's going on behind the technology that we all use? If you speak of satellites, we all use that on a daily basis. What do people not know about how their daily life could be affected?
In fact, you are using every day, on average, more than 45 satellites. for all your daily usage, whether you look like the weather forecast, whether you use Uber or the GPS, these type of things, for telecommunication as well. So without knowing it, you rely totally on the space infrastructure. So it becomes really a critical infrastructure. So the countries are well aware of that now. So either they implement some strategy, some even defense strategy. You need to protect the asset in space, or you have to work sometimes together also to use these assets for the benefits of humanity. And it goes much far beyond, the pure national interests. Sometimes when you talk about climate change, it's on a global scale. It's not always easy. We're talking about diplomacy. Sometimes between some countries, it's not always easy. But it's really something that put people together. When you talk about going back to Mars, for instance, or to learn if there is potential life on other planets, it's something in the interest of the entire humanity.
Mm-hmm. So now you've dipped into going outbound again. That's the what everybody wants, right? Everybody wants further. Even the billionaires now, that becomes their focus, right? Yeah. That's what they want. Everybody wants a piece of it now. There is something about that exploration, the excitement of the unknown, the potential learning in the unknown. And I wanted to ask you personally about what the attraction is there and the possibility is there, and the really famous, amazing race that you personally did 5 years ago. I want to talk about the rowing competition that you took part in. What was it? How far did you go? And what did you learn?
Oh, first I can make the link between space and ocean, because I'm a sailor privately. I like sailing. I like the ocean. I've always grown up close to the seashore. So, and I've always worked in space. And as a matter of fact, I've grown up in French Guiana, where there is the European spaceport. And I remember going back from school, cycling and taking some rocket launches from the beach. And so I've always been fascinated by wild environments and the parallel between space and ocean is really easy. Ocean, we don't know anything about ocean, the deep ocean and all these things. And it's the same for space, and we have everything to discover. And it's also a resource to protect as well. So the parallel is really easy to do. And as a matter of fact, effectively, I've crossed the Atlantic on a rowboat. And so I had time to be, involved and deeply involved in the ocean, in the nature. And
let's repeat that for the audience. You crossed the Atlantic in a rowboat. So you went from Senegal to where you were living. You basically went to Senegal and then rowboated home.
Yeah, rowboat, exactly, home. Yeah, to French Guiana, South America. So Senegal from in Africa, on the African continent, crossing the Atlantic Ocean down to a bit to South America, in French Guiana. Yeah.
There's a really, really good display of all the work you did in a video that's available for everybody to watch online, and I highly recommend it. And it shows you on your 42-day journey. When you look at that, what are the parts that stand out for you? Because we see the good, the bad, the super scary. What do you feel when you watch that now?
It would be really difficult to talk about this in only a few minutes because there are so many things. And first, why I did that is to feel so many new emotions, also to learn a lot. So during the preparation, because I prepared myself for at least 3 years, where I learned so much communication because I had to find some sponsorship, naval architecture. I refurbished completely my boat, so plumbing, structure, all these things, navigation, technique, tactics. So I learned so much in the preparation, and during the crossing as well, I learned so much on myself, about the others. I had a lot of support. So many emotions. I don't know where to start from, but if we can.
Well, one of the things that stood out for me was the communication with your team on the ground, and you did a lot of good work communicating to the next generation what you were going through. Tell us about the communication you had with the school children of your progress and what you learned seeing the questions through their eyes.
So I had some project and partnership with some schools for the young kids. So I came at some schools in French Guiana with my boat. I explained how the boat was structured, the technique, the tactic, the navigation at sea, and they were following me. So I offered them a map. So every day they were, pointing and pinning my position. I called them from the middle of the ocean to make a kind of session of routing when you analyze the weather forecast and where you want to go. And for them it was really really nice. So a kid of mine, one of my son was part of the classroom, and it was really a use case for them, really nice use case to learn geography, to learn latitude, longitude on the Earth. Also for French, to write in French. So it was really amazing, and it was also an amazing support because I was there. Across, it took me 42 days without seeing literally nobody, nobody during 42 days. And when I arrived, more than 400 kids were welcoming me, at the entrance of the channels of the city. And it was so emotional as well. So it was really a strong support. And really I did that also with that perspective, saying that if you work hard, if you believe in your dreams, you can achieve your dreams. And this is a message I try to pass to this new generation that, believe in your dreams, work hard and listen to your teacher, and you could accomplish amazing things. And it's also really important in French Guiana because it's a small French territory in the middle of South America. It's really a melting pot of cultures. You have indigenous tribes, you have Indians, you have plenty of different cultures. And for them, it's a new perspective to the world, and it allows them to be open-minded of the world as well.
What was their impression of it? Did they capture the gravity and the immensity of the project?
I think so, because they had some really relevant questions, and
like what?
How do you survive in the middle of the sea? How do you feel with respect to the nature, the ocean, and do you fish? These type of basic things. So and for them as well. For instance, Africa was something really on the other side of the planet, and they say, okay, you come from Africa and you go back to French Guiana sometimes. So, I think.
Do you think the kids went home to their parents and said, we can go to Africa? There's a guy he did it himself in a boat. It's like really accessible.
Sometimes they were quite afraid for me, but I think after that, I hope that I give them some hopes that everything is possible, and effectively they could achieve their dreams. And
you mentioned fish. One of the things that stood out for me watching the video was those flying fish that would just land in your boat. You just wake up and there were a bunch of fish in your boat. Yeah. Were they not edible? You were throwing them all back in. Are they not edible, flying fish?
So yes, you can eat them. Okay. You can fry them, but I had no time for that. I was racing, but yes, so it was really amazing. I don't know. It was only during the night. I was hearing, on the door, bam, bam, flying fishes. Hitting the door and just crashing in the cockpit outside. And when I was waking up, I think the record is 72 fishes, and it was like smelling in the morning when you wake up and you have to clean up the cockpit before you can actually row.
Gosh.
But
that's amazing. It's like food delivery. You wake up and there's food on your in your front step.
But I was sticking to my freeze-dried food in powder,
I know this is a space connection as well. How is freeze-dried food enough to sustain you when you had so much physical work? You were doing how many hours of rowing every day on average?
On average, 10 hours of rowing every day, So I was rowing in a slot of 1 hour and 10 minutes rest. During this 10 minutes rest, I was sleeping like 6 minutes and then going back to that. But in fact, a friend of mine, she's a dietitian, and she prepared one bag per day of 5,000 calories. So, and she told me, you eat everything. So I had this freeze-dried food plus some dry fruits and, energized bars and this type of things. So it was feeding myself, so it was okay. But the taste was, at the end, was quite awful, So this is what I was missing.
When you landed back, when you pulled in, what was your first meal that night?
So the first one was a ham sandwich. You know what? Because I had this fresh baguette, so I'm French, and I really miss the fresh bread. So I had this fresh ham sandwich, and the next one was it was a T-bone steak because in fact. With the food, in fact, you don't have any flavors. So, of course, you have energy, and it worked very well.
Right.
But I had no real pleasure in eating. Only once. It was for the Christmas Eve where I had some duck can, and this is the only meal I prepared myself.
Right. Yeah, you were there because you were there over Christmas.
Christmas, and New Year as well. So.
Bonne année à tous.
Yeah, it was I'm going to say it again. Everybody should watch the video because you get kind of lost in the timing of what you went through and the little homage that you paid to your last bread. This is my last piece of bread.
Petit hommage. Ceci est mon dernier petit pain au lait.
Because you did have some fresh bread at the beginning, but
Yes,
obviously 42.
exactly.
It didn't last 42 days, did it?
Yeah, I had only one fresh fruit. There were fruits, oranges I bought from Senegal just before I left, and this was the only things that with taste, in fact, and also a small bottle of wine. And I had only one dip every day, not because.
That's very French. That's very French.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Tell me, when you used the science, the technology, and everything to navigate that, bringing it back to your day job now at the embassy, what's going on in space. Where do the comparisons continue when it comes to technology and communication and science?
What I always say that I couldn't have crossed without space and space technologies, basically for weather forecast. I had to plan and check the weather every day and to change my direction and the tactics. So weather forecast, also the currents. You can observe the currents from satellites. Telecommunication, I was using sat phones. I couldn't communicate without satellites. For safety as well, I had a safety beacon, so to track my position, and in case really of emergency, I could trigger this beacon.
Right.
So, but in that case, I had to abandon my ship and wait for a cargo to come and pick me up. So all that. So you rely on space technologies. You cannot cross without technology, and this is the same in many different places at sea, but also in wild places where for telemedicine, all these type of things, where you rely really on space technologies for that.
So am I hearing you say that we should be doing more of that to put that technology to the test so that we could use it better?
You mean space technologies?
Yeah, or projects like the sailing, both of them, right? Because again, they're the same.
Yes, definitely, and I think we need to raise awareness of what space can bring to everyone, to the end user. We are discussing and working with the US to develop some operational tools for any small town to use, these tools, for instance, for urban planning to prevent floodings of the small river that is going through the village, and all this public authority, they don't need to know that this data are coming from space, but they need to be able to use them. And something we are working hard on, because people still think that space is far away, it's very expensive, but no, there is a huge amount of data, so we need to work also a lot to make them available and accessible and usable for the end user. But I think there is, really a benefit to raise awareness of the usage of space technology, and this type of project, at least what I try to highlight when I crossed the Atlantic and I had this project with the kids, but with also through my communication, that space is really beneficial for everyone. Yeah.
So you're saying people don't realize yet. What is the fact that people around the world don't recognize, don't value what space can offer and what the technology that currently exists can offer? What are we missing out on by not being as savvy as we can be? Because
you cannot see what's in space currently. When you're on Earth, you don't know that there are plenty of satellites on top of your head. You even don't know that you are using them. I was saying that you are using an average 45 to 50 satellites per day. So people don't know it, and people think it's still very expensive. It's still expensive to go to space. They see space perhaps more on the the exploration part. We go to the moon, so it's something. Wow, it's fantastic. But what does that with me? It has nothing to do with me. But because people cannot see what's in space and don't see the application, and this is our job to effectively raise this awareness. I think.
When you say that we use an average of 45 satellites a day in our average life, when people start talking about terrorism in space, when it comes to putting our technology at risk with other countries around the world, do you think that could instill panic?
Panic, you mean the end user, everyone?
Yeah, if people started saying, hold on a second, you're right, I do use this every day. Yes. Wait, I wouldn't be able to do my banking. I wouldn't be able to communicate with friends. I wouldn't be able to connect with people. That's really scary, knowing that is a vulnerability that we have.
Yes, and but it's the same for internet or whatever you are using every day. The technologies and tools, we rely on technologies. And our job as well, and it's raising a lot, it's to protect this infrastructure. So There are plenty of projects regarding cybersecurity, for instance, of all this infrastructure, all the data that are transiting through satellites, for instance. So in France, for instance, and in the US as well, we have set up what we call a space command, so to really protect these assets. So, and in the US, the US Space Force has been created 3 years ago as well with the same objectives. So yeah, we really tackle this, so don't need to panic. And there are plenty of redundancy, but yeah. So.
My final question to you is this one. What is it that you wish, given your knowledge of what's available, what technology can offer? You gave us a great description of all the things it can be offering. What do you wish more people knew?
About space?
About space and the possibilities of space.
To trust this data. So for telecommunication, for Earth observation, and also to... And I would say our job is perhaps not to make people understand this data, but to be able to use them, you know? And so I don't know if it answers the questions, but yeah, you can trust space and what's coming from space.
And expect more from it?
More? Oh, yes, definitely. This is my job, so more and more.
But as a society, we should expect more from what is capable of happening.
Yes. Yeah, sure, definitely.
Lovely.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining us today. This was very enlightening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thanks for listening. Let us know what you think of the show and who you'd like to hear us talk to. Please subscribe and rate this podcast. That way more people will hear about it. Thanks so much for listening. Au revoir.